Today's great interview is with my friend Nitzan. Nitzan has a cool story. He's the son of two Israeli immigrants. He did some traveling all over the world. He's owned commercial properties in Manhattan, including a clothes store. He then went into flipping, then went into multifamily. So he's got a lot of stuff that he's going to talk about in today's interview, and it's all really interesting. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a review if you think it's worthy. And I'm looking to speak to as many of you as possible. So if you're interested in having a conversation with me about real estate, it can be about anything whatsoever to do with real estate. I'd love to hear your story, get to know you, see if there's any way I can help. So the link is in the description below, or you can go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com, my website, and sign up there. But first, enjoy today's great interview. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler, and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we have Nitzan on the show. How are you doing today, Nitzan?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Barry. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
I'm very excited to have you on. I follow you on Instagram. I told you before, and I listen to your podcast. So you do a phenomenal job. We'll talk about a little bit about that later, where people can kind of pick you up. And I've also got to mention, we talked before. Nitzan's logo of his company is in the background. It's the three real estate buildings there and in the world, because he's called the traveling investor, and he loves to travel. So I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But before we get into anything more, do you kind of want to give us an idea of your background and kind of what you're focused on right now?
Sure. So I grew up in New York City. My parents were immigrants that came over from Israel. They didn't really speak a lot of English. I like to say that, we spoke two languages in our house, English and bad English, right? Growing up in a house where, my father spoke very poorly English because he just never learned it from a formal place. It was really hard to understand what he wanted from me. But then when I started traveling the world and I realized that everybody spoke like him English, I spoke English, I spoke perfect to them. So it was great. But, when I was a little kid, my dad always told me that there's two types of people in this world, those that pay rent and those that collect. And son, you always want to collect. And, I went through the whole process of going to high school, graduating. Then I went to the Israeli army and I came back, and then I went into college. I did my stint in college, but I never graduated because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And, I didn't have what it was to sit down and to study at that point. I went traveling the world. I started in real estate with my father and my brothers and worked for Lehman Brothers in the 90s. Did that for a while, owned clothing stores in Manhattan. And then at the age of 25, my father passed away, and that kind of threw me for a downspin. And I packed up my bags, I moved to Israel, hung out there for a little while, and then I went traveling for about 6 years, and hence the name Traveling Investor. And even when I was in Israel, I was flipping houses and renovating them and doing real estate over there, doing real estate in South America as well with some friends. So it's always been in my background, no matter where I was or what I was doing. I always was looking at real estate, always was involved in real estate. And about 10 years ago, I moved to Florida from Israel. I was living in Israel with my family and started flipping houses because that was the lowest hanging fruit. That was the big '08 crash and whatnot. So I was picking up houses for $16,000, $20,000, concrete block, 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes. And, that was amazing. It was cheap, could flip it in one day. I would put it under contract and I'd already have 3 buyers waiting to buy it. But in real estate, you got to have vision, right? You got to have forevision, right? You got to be able to kind of see the future a little bit. So when I was looking into the future with the single family fix and flips and what was going on, I noticed that it was a finite amount of houses and opportunities and whatnot. More people were getting involved and prices were going up. So I had to look for different avenues, different ways of different streams of income that I could start creating. And, you know, I always knew that passive income, that was the way to go, right? You wake up in the morning, you go to the mailbox, you open it, oh, there's a check. And you stroll down to the bank and you deposit that check, right? And then you go sit on your porch and have your tea, and it's an amazing day. But I also realized that flipping houses, every time I flipped a house, I wasn't making any more money until I flipped the next house. And I kept having to do that no matter what my systems and processes were. So I realized that I wanted to get into something that I could start once, put it into motion once, and have it feed me for as long as I wanted, constantly. And I realized that apartments were the best way to go, right? Living in New York, it's a tenant-friendly state. So I never wanted to get into apartments in New York because, you know, the laws are for the tenants. They don't have to pay. The burden is on the landlord and all that kind of stuff. So I was more into commercial in New York. But when I left New York and I saw that there are other states and cities that are landlord-friendly, and that piqued my interest. And, you know, of course, like anybody else, I didn't know anything about multifamily. I had to learn. So I went and I found myself a couple of mentors and gurus and learned exactly what I needed from them, and grew and closed on deals. We just closed on a 48-unit property 2 days ago in South Carolina. So that's a nice, that's a nice win. Right? That's a nice body slam. And now I help people, I teach people to do what I do, and I help them get involved, because my goal is to teach people how to go out and create passive cash flow for themselves, so that they can really live life on their terms. And that's what I really feel that all this is about. It's about being able to live life on your terms.
Yeah.
That's kind of a long of who I am. Sorry, I took two,
Yeah. It's been a fascinating journey for you, for sure. And I love that life on your terms, right? That's what I feel. That's why I feel so passionate about real estate. Whatever your terms are, whatever you want your life to be, you can create that with real estate, right? You want to be on the beach all day, or you can invest in passive deals, or just create that passive lifestyle for yourself. But if you want to be working 10, 12, 14 hours a day, you can have that as well if you're driven that way. If you want to be a traveling person, right, like yourself, right, you can create that life where you can go travel and you have that income still coming in. It's absolutely amazing. So I love that you pointed out. Something else that I love that your dad taught you was that there's two types of people: someone who pays rent and someone that collects rent. You want to be the person that collects rent. That's the best and simplest way to explain rental real estate, but it's so true, right? It's just such a simplistic and brilliant way to explain it. So was your dad somewhat of a real estate investor himself?
Well, yeah, he was. Yeah, my dad he was a very unique person, because he didn't graduate the 6th grade. You know, when he was living in Israel at the time, there was a lot of wars and turmoil and poverty, and you know, the Israel was being formed, and there was a lot of stress from international stress and what was going on in Eastern Europe as well. You know, so there was a lot of things happening, and school was not really important. So he was working, and he went into the military, and he advanced in the military, but he always worked for himself. You know, in Israel, he had a construction company. He owned a taxi company where he had several taxi drivers working for him. And, he also he used to say, the richest person in the world is someone who owns a piece of land free and clear. Like this, no one can take it away from you. It's yours. You can do with it whatever you want. If you need to go pitch a tent and live there, you can do it. You don't owe anybody any money. You can rent it. You can build on it. You can lease it out. You can do whatever you want. But he was always big into that. And when they moved to this country, he started working with a guy who had a store in a building in New York City, and he was working for the guy. And that guy owned the building that the store was in. And and then one day the guy came and said, "Listen, I'm getting old." Actually, the story is the guy died. The woman, the wife, left him the store. Gave my father the store because he'd been working with the guy, and she loved my father. And she's like, "Listen, I'm out. Just pay me minimal amount of money, and the business is yours." So he went, and then the owner of the building, then she came a few years back and she said, listen, I want to sell the building. I want to sell it to you and blah, blah, blah. So that's how he got his start in New York City, buying commercial buildings and renovating them and all that. So he's always had that mindset, of having other people, leveraging other people's knowledge and skills and efforts and whatnot, so that you don't have to do everything. So yeah, he was always in the back. I remember when I returned from Israel after the army, and I was living with them because I didn't have a place to live in New York. And finally, at one point, I said, okay, I'm going to rent an apartment. And my father got pissed at me. He goes, haven't I taught you anything? He goes, you're going to rent? When you rent, you just throw money out the window. You might as well just burn it now. It doesn't give you equity. It doesn't do anything. I said, I agree with you. The problem is I'm a 21-year-old kid and I don't have $2 million to buy an apartment in Manhattan. What do you want from me? So I had to go, but he was really upset that I was renting. Very upset.
That sounds like a brilliant man. Like he clearly had the entrepreneurial mindset.
Absolutely. He was the kind of guy that, because he didn't graduate higher education, he wasn't able to put pen to paper with numbers. But if you told him, we've got a shipment coming in, or, it's going to cost $250 a foot. We've got 1,300 feet and the cost and this and that. He would work everything in his head, and he just come and he'd do it. It was interesting and it was, very, it was wild to see the way he worked. He never had a pen and paper, but it was always in his head. Everything. It was incredible.
Yeah, super smart guy. You don't have to go to school to be smart, right? Just because you have whatever, some kind of degree, doesn't mean that you're smart, right? There's plenty of other kind of smarts out there, and I'm sure definitely your dad was one of those people. So what was the first piece of real estate that you ever bought? Maybe with your dad or your brother, I think you mentioned that, or what was the first investment per se that you ever made?
Sure. So we bought a foreclosure office building in Manhattan, in Chelsea on 29th Street or something like that, 29th Street. We bought it for about $3 million because the owner of the building was collecting all the rent and not paying, and then the bank foreclosed on him. So he ran with all the rent and whatnot. So he ran away with that money. And we went and we were in the market. We found the property and we bought it with 10% down for $3 million. Which is a steal, right? And we just started renovating it and fixing it up and leasing it up and moving it. And then Chelsea became what it is today, Chelsea, and rents just went up. And we converted all of the sweatshops and the residential units into commercial. And now it's an office building.
And you still own it to this day?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We don't sell. Manhattan properties you don't sell.
Yeah.
Right. Even now, when New York kind of went back to the 1970s in a lot of respects, with the crime and what's going on and businesses and people leaving, the value is still there. New York will always be New York. Rome was always Rome, right? Even today we talk about Rome. So I see New York City as being Rome. Even though, you have Hong Kong and all these other countries, New York City is New York City, right? People come to New York. So yeah, I don't think we'll ever sell those buildings. You can do a lot of it, right? Refinance, do creative financing with it and whatnot. But I don't think we'll ever sell.
Do you think it's a good time to buy Manhattan right now then? Or
yeah.
Really? So there's opportunities there right now?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You can, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a residential broker up there. And he says, you can buy a nice studio apartment in the Upper East Side, Upper West Side for, $500,000, $500,000, where, a year or 2 years ago, there were over $1 million. So there's some good deals. If you got some cash, if you got some investors that you go. Again, the problem with Manhattan with New York is that it's a tenant-friendly state. That's why I'm always like, I want, but I don't want to put somebody in there. And then, you can't get them out for a year or two. Right. So it's tricky. Yeah. It's a love-hate relationship.
You kind of have that devil and the angel on the shoulder, right? One telling you to buy, the other one telling you not to.
Exactly.
Tell us a little bit, because I'm always interested in I've never considered investing in New York, and especially Manhattan, just because you assume the prices are too high. I always heard that it's more about who you know there, right? There's only a few players kind of necessarily that's buying there. Talk us a little bit about what is the, from your perspective, how is the Manhattan market in general and how it's been and kind of how you were able to maybe do deals there, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, Manhattan is big, right? I mean, land-wise, it's small, but the opportunities that are there are huge, right? You don't need to be one of these guys that is developing, one of these tall buildings over there and whatnot. You really don't, There's a lot of smaller properties that you can go that you can really make good money on. Again, the thing is with New York is that you have rent control, rent stabilization, then you have free market, and on top of that, it's a tenant-friendly state. So when you're buying a property, residential property in New York City, you want to make sure that you understand the rent control, the rent stabilization laws. You want to understand the tenancy laws and how you can evict someone and what the process is of evicting and how long it takes and what your rights as a landlord are before buying, right? This is why I love Florida. Florida is a landlord-friendly state. Your tenant doesn't pay, you send them an eviction notice. 30 days later, you go to court. The judge goes, "Did you pay your rent?" "No, I didn't pay your rent." "You're out. Have a nice day." So it's that easy, and that as a landlord, that's what you want, right? When I went to the eviction court as a landlord, the judge told the tenant, he goes, "Did you fulfill your part of the contract? Did you pay your rent?" "No, I didn't." "Well, why didn't you?" "Well, this was not good, or this was," he goes, "Well, your commitment, your part of the bargain, you didn't fulfill. If you would have fulfilled your side of the bargain, then I would be able to go against the landlord and say, look, they fulfilled their part of the contract, the lease, they paid you your rent, you need to do this, you have X amount of time to fix, the repairs or do what you need to do to remedy. But since you didn't, then you got to go. You got to go, right?" Yeah. So that's kind of New York, right? New York is tricky. It's awesome. I would look, and especially now, with the pandemic and with all that kind of going on, office spaces are changing, right? People are just not coming back to work in the immediate future, right? Now, if you look at history repeats itself. No matter how smart we get, it always repeats itself. And what do I mean by that? Let's take 9/11. Happened, 19 years ago, right? People said, "Oh my God, the city will never recover, never recover, never recover, blah, 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 blah." It recovered like that. People suddenly forgot what happened. Well, they didn't forget, but they got over it. And they, people need to live their lives. We need to kind of put that stuff in the back of our brain so that we can move forward, or else no one will ever move forward. We'll be stuck in that moment. So with this as well, people aren't, now people are leaving their offices. They're going away from that. So office buildings are now, their values are going down, and you can pick them up for a good price if you're able to hold on to them, right? While the market is bouncing at the bottom, and you can hold on to these properties, it's going to go back up eventually. Someone's going to come up with an idea. Hey, look, we can do this with offices, or this is the new avenue with offices, or this is what we're doing. It will come back, because in next year, people are going to go, "Corona? Yeah, let's have one," right? They won't remember what's going on, or even in 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, right? People are going to go and say, "You know what, I'm tired of working from my home. The wife, the kids, my husband, the kid, whatever it is, let me get an office space." And they'll go and they'll come back to the offices, and they'll move back, and there'll be different ways. And even now, I see when I'm talking with companies that, "Oh, we're all working from home now. It's going to take 2 days to get you what you need." Really? Really? 2 days? So that customer service aspect has to come back as well. So if you have the opportunity to buy some commercial office building, commercial spaces in New York, I would say go get a good deal, hold on to it, put somebody in there and kind of, hold it for a little while.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
it'll come back.
I agree so much with that stuff because everyone's talking about you can work from home now. Everyone's going to go work from home. All these big companies, Twitter, and said that you don't need to come into the offices anymore. But just like you said, I think people are going to get tired of working from home. It's your home, right? You want your home to be your home, right? And it's nice for a little bit, I'm sure, to be working from there. But like you said, you have the dog back and you have the kids running. Oh, I know that 1-year-old that, he makes it impossible to work sometimes, and as much as I love my wife, sometimes it's nice to have that space from each other as well, and it's, I don't think, and then also like people are talking about the suburbanization, right, of everything. Everyone's moving out to the suburbs right now, but there was a reason why everyone moved downtown or into the city. There was a reason because they wanted to be close to everything. So once, like you said, in a year or two, once this Corona stuff passes over, they have such a short memory. It's unbelievable. Yes. What a short memory. Now it seems terrible and everyone has to wear masks and social distancing and everything like that. Stores are closing, but I completely agree. It's going to come back the other way. And if you can, as you pointed out, if you can buy an office building and you know that you're going to have to hold on to it for a year or two and eat that debt payment for a year or two. But after that, there's no doubt in my mind that things are going to come back. And especially somewhere like New York and Manhattan, right? It's always going to be New York. It's always going to be Manhattan. And people are always going to want to be in that area. There's no doubt about it. I think that's a cool subject because it kind of goes counter to what everyone's talking about right now. Everyone's talking about moving to the suburbs and moving away from the office. But yeah, I think that's cool. So
and with a place like New York, you got to think, okay, if the normal office arena is not there anymore, right? Let's take that box and throw it out and come up with new ideas, right? So if you think about it, people also don't want to go to hospitals today. Oh, COVID is in the hospital. You're going to get COVID just for going to the hospital. I don't want to see the doctor. I'm sick. I don't want to have a procedure in the hospital. Maybe the nurse or whatever, right? So if you can go and buy an office complex and transform it into medical office spaces, doctors now are going into more private practices and doing that. And that's also an opportunity that that you can work on.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And it's still real estate, right? There's always going to be something that's a value to that real estate. Even who knows, maybe you can turn it into some kind of living spaces, who knows, right? There's always an opportunity to do something. And even if you knock it down and you just have that, you still have that land in Manhattan. So yeah, absolutely. So then you bought that first property. Where did you go from there? Was that then soon afterwards you moved to Israel, or did you buy some more real estate before that?
Yeah, we had a couple of more properties that we had in Manhattan. Then from there, buying the assets, and then you have a crew that you're going in and renovating the inside of your buildings and whatnot. My brother and I said, we have the crew. Why not go and renovate other people's properties for them? So we opened up a renovation and restoration company, right? So when we didn't have a unit in our properties to build, to renovate or whatnot, we said, well, we got to keep the guys busy because we don't want to lose them, right? So then we started renovating and restoring other people's properties as well. So that gave me the inside track of on that world as well, right? I used to spend summers, you go into the older buildings in Manhattan and you see the water tanks on top of the buildings, right? I used to spend summers inside the water tanks, fixing them, tarring them up, replacing them, doing all that kind of stuff. So that gave me a good, working base and knowledge of the inner workings and the systems that go into a building as well. And then from there, we had retail clothing stores in the village where we did that, closed those down. And then when my father passed away at the age of 25, I moved to Israel. Hung out there for about a year, went traveling all over the world, came back to Israel. I opened up the first raw vegan restaurant in Israel. And then in 2009, I moved to Florida with my family. And then, obviously during that time, I was always doing real estate here, real estate there, but, kind of just living on day by day enjoying myself. As I mentioned before the podcast, I had, dreadlocks, below my butt. I was a traveling hippie, and it was great. But when you have kids, you kind of, you don't have to get too serious. But once they're in school, I said, what am I going to do all day? I'm just going to look at this and watch TV and stare at the four walls. Let me do something, right? So, we were fixing and flipping houses and doing and going through all that. And, the market got tight and went into multifamily. And, so now I've got office buildings, I've got apartment complexes, I've got a hotel in my portfolio, I've got a glamping resort in outside of Charlotte, North Carolina as well, tiny homes on a lake, a old private little beach. So, doing all that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. So when you came back from Israel, I want to talk about it, the real estate in Israel in a second, but when you came back, you said that you were sitting at home, being on the beach or whatever. You created a lifestyle for yourself at that point where you didn't have to work. You had enough income coming in from your investments.
Right. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I was flipping houses. I had some rentals as well, the properties in Manhattan, different things. So, it was there. It was good, right? It was good for a nice lifestyle that we could do whatever we wanted. But when you see the possibilities, when you're sitting down with yourself for a long time and you kind of question, well, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? What do I want to be? What kind of example do I want to be for my children? Then you got to answer those questions. And I realized that I have 18 years that my children are born, right? From the time that they're born till the time that they're 18 years old, I have to be there for them. I have to provide for them. I have to provide financial support, spiritual support, emotional support, be the example of what a man is in the family. So why not go do something that you're passionate about, that you can help people and grow and expand and whatnot. And I've always wanted to help people. I always liked speaking. People always told me that I was great at explaining things, at showing people, at guiding and whatnot. So after 10 years of being in the multifamily arena and the real estate, and for so many years, I decided that, I'm going to create the traveling investor brand. I'm going to go out and, see if anybody out there wants to learn how to do real estate, if they want to flip houses, if they want to buy apartment complexes. I can, I said, let me put together a program that takes people from A to Z and actually holds their hand, because I'm sure we've been to all the, guru seminars, right? You go for 3 days, you get fire hosed with information, and, you kind of only retain about 30% of what you heard and what you learned, and you come back on Monday and you put the book on the shelf, you go back to your job, and then everybody at work goes, so how was that weekend? Huh? Are you a millionaire yet? Right? Did you buy your first deal? And blah, 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 blah. And you kind of, all the air comes out of your balloon and you deflate. So I wanted to put together a program that I can really hold people's hand from the beginning and show them step by step and do that. So, that's kind of where I'm at now. Right? I want to see how big it can get.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So going back to, you said you did some flipping and some investing in Israel. Is there a big difference in the real estate market there? How do things work there? And I know this was a few years back there, but how does financing work there? How do you find deals? Is it, what is it like there?
So, up until about 15 years ago, it was kind of the Wild West, right? You had to know somebody who knew somebody that had a piece of land, and banks were giving you mortgages and all that. But the thing with Israel, and I don't understand why they do it this way. People get paid in shekels, right? That's the Israeli currency, shekels, right? You're making 4,000 or 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 shekels a month in shekels. You pay rent based on the dollar. So let's say, so your rent is $500, let's say. 1 month it could be 5,000 shekels. The next month it could be 6,000 shekels. The month after that could be 3,000 shekels. So there's no, you're always kind of like, okay, where's it going? I don't know why they do it that way. Mortgages are also based on the dollar. It's very strange over there, right? People are working, but then their salary is not based on the dollar, it's based on the shekel. and it's not equivalent to what they need to pay. So it always keeps them, where do we go and how do we do that? Value, land value, housing, always sky high, through the roof, right? Israel is the size, is probably actually smaller than the state of New Jersey. You can go from the north of Israel all the way to the south of Israel in 6 hours by car. A plane from the west coast, from the west coast to the east coast of Israel, you can take a plane, 10, 15, 20 minutes, no, not even, 20 minutes you're already in Jordan. 10 minutes you're crossing the entire country. It's a very small country. And you have a lot of, right, it's the only Jewish homeland, so to speak. So Jews from anywhere in the world are always welcome back to Israel. And a lot of them go back to Israel and live. So there's always a lot of people coming in, and then you have people who aren't Jewish that want to live in Israel, right? That support Israel, that love the country, that love the area, right? So there's always demand for land, for building, is always building. So you got to pick up a good piece of land, and, it's like New York City, you just never let it go. I bought a piece of land, 700 square meters, 750 square meters, about 15 years ago for $120,000. It's got a small, tiny house on it. I'm talking tiny.
Yeah.
Tiny in the sense that it's maybe 800 square feet, the whole house, right?
Really tiny.
Today, the value of it is maybe $700,000, $800,000.
Wow.
Just that piece of land, just the appreciation of it. When the economy crashed in 2008 here, and, everything went down more than 50% in value. In Israel, it kind of dipped maybe 10, 15% for a little while and then came back up. So value is strong over there, And mortgages now today are the same exact as you do here. Debt service, income, your income to expense ratios they look at. So it's very similar, very similar.
Yeah. It's always interesting.
Today you have Remax and you have all these other companies that are there. So now it's not the Wild West anymore.
Okay. Yeah. So you can actually buy land from here, buy property from the US, I guess, through Remax without necessarily having to go there, probably.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well,
I'm always interested in, I have a friend who lives in Spain. I'm always asking him about the real estate there and how it works there. And he says, a lot of times you have to put 50% down there, and it's not, you can't always find the deals because it's not like, they don't always go on the MLS, just kind of like here, it's always interesting to me how it works in different countries. So that's cool. So then you mentioned that you came back and you were flipping here. I think I always hear a lot of times as well that people go from flipping to multifamily. And I think it's a few things. For one, like you said, you're always buying yourself a job, right? Every time you buy that next house that you've got to flip, you're buying yourself that house and that stress and that work. And some people love it. It's great for some people, and they have a monster flipping business and they make millions of dollars. But I think there's a progression there for sure. But how did you get into multifamily of all things? You could have maybe gone into buying single families, or you could have gone into doing notes, doing tax liens. Why was it that multifamily attracted you?
So, I was flipping houses. I still have a few single family rentals, right? So the concept of somebody paying me rent to pay for my mortgage and whatnot, always, I always was like, wow, that's awesome, right? But I never knew, or I always thought that, damn, to buy these big buildings, right? These big complexes, you need a lot of money. What are these people doing? Maybe they're partnering with 2 or 3 other people, but God, what are they doing to make so much money that they can buy these huge buildings in Manhattan, right? I never knew that. But after I was here and I was flipping houses and I had rentals and whatnot, I knew that there was a better way to do this, because I had one house that, the roof had to be replaced. That was $15,000. That was the entire income for the year for that house. So whatever rent I made just went to pay for the roof, right? And then I started scouring the internet and looking, and I found this guy one of these gurus, right? And I bought his home study course, And I got it and I read it and I read the book and I listened to the CDs. Back in those days, we had CDs still. So I was listening to the CDs in the car and, doing what he was telling me to do, listening to the CDs while I'm driving the neighborhoods looking for houses, right? I'm listening to him. And then I said, oh, okay. And I found a fourplex that was in foreclosure about a half hour from where I live. And I bought it and I did everything wrong. I did everything exactly what he said in the book to do. I did exactly the opposite, right? He said buy B and C class properties, not the D property. I bought a D property in a D neighborhood. Now, for your listeners, D property, D stands for drugs, right?
Disaster.
I bought in a drug-infested area in a really bad neighborhood. I had drug dealers in my property. I had prostitutes in my properties, but I bought it right. I bought it really cheap. So when they were paying rent, I was making good income. But it was a pain in the ass to go and collect rent and to do all that. So I learned a lot of lessons buying that. And then I started realizing that I needed to build my network of people, right? And through this, through my mentor, I learned about syndication. I learned, wow, I can actually go out and people will give me their money to invest in this property that I'm putting together in this deal. That blew my mind. And then I realized, wow, that is the number one secret of wealthy people. That's how they get wealthy, right? They pool other people's talents, other people's money, skills, efforts, all that. They don't do it by themselves. So I started putting my team together. This is what I teach people also. I teach them how to put their team together, who they need to have on their team, what role do they want to play, right? So I figured that out. What lifestyle do they want to have? And based on that lifestyle, you build your business around that, right? Rather than conforming your lifestyle to the business that you're in. So I found my business partner. We've been together now 11 years. We've done all the deals together. And we just go one step at a time, one deal at a time. And I realized that multifamily was the way to do it. And when I transitioned into multifamily, I was telling everybody I knew, all my hard money lenders, everybody that I was talking to, my wholesalers, hey, listen, if you know any multifamily properties, send them over to me. I'm getting into multifamily, blah, blah, blah. So I learned how to analyze through my mentor. I went to all of his boot camps and 3-day events and whatnot. And I became a speaker for him as well because we advanced and we were doing deals. So, and then I realized that, you know what? It's great that I'm under his tutelage and but I have my own personality, I have my own experiences, my own knowledge, and I want to do things a little bit differently. So I went and I started creating my own program and my own way of doing it. And now with multifamily, it's just one deal after another. You gain momentum. You build your network of investors, of people. You build relationships, right? And when you start doing deals, and you're known in the industry as someone who can close, brokers will then now send you a deal and they'll actually tell the seller, hey, we've worked with these people before. You should get them as your buyer, right? That's kind of where everybody wants to get at. So, I understood the fact that I wanted people, because in the last downturn in 08, 09, right? People lost their jobs, people lost their homes, people lost their businesses, right? They left the office spaces. Office spaces got hit hard, right? There were a lot of single family foreclosures, right? People will always need a place to live. If it's not their own home that they own, then it's an apartment complex, right? People will always need a place to live. So if you're buying an apartment complex and you're buying it right, okay, that's the key, buying it right, buying it with your exit strategy already in place, and you're buying it conservatively, you can ride out any storm that you're headed into, right? And keep it running. And then eventually you'll be able to boom it up. And what I like about multifamily versus single family is a lot, right? Economies of scale, right? One landscaper can do one huge building that's 100 tenants rather than one landscaper doing one house for you, right? One roof with one tenant versus one roof and 100 tenants, right? One tenant doesn't pay you rent in your house, you don't have your mortgage payment that month, right? one person or 10% of the people in a multifamily don't pay you, you can still pay the mortgage. So there's a lot of benefits to doing that, right? And like I said, if you're buying in a good market, that market will push you up, right? Single family home, you got to look at what your neighbor sold their house for, right? If they wanted to get out because they needed to sell, they would drop their price. Now your value just went down. In multifamily, it's based on your NOI. It's based on your income. It's based on what you're doing to that property, how much money you put into it, what it's based on, all that good jazz. And it's a lot different than the stock market because who cares what's going on in China, Japan right now? I'm focused on my neighborhood right here. This is where I'm focused on. So I knew that before going in. I said, this is where I want to be. I want to buy something, as I said before, buy something once and have it generate income constantly and just hold on to it. I'll give you an example. We bought an apartment complex, 130 units in Greensboro. We bought it September of 2019. So it's a year that we've owned it. We bought it for $9.8 million. I just got a guy, a broker, he sent me an email. He's saying that his buyers want to pay $95,000 a door. $95,000 a door times 128 doors, that's $12 million. We just increased the value of that property by 30% in 1 year. Wow. Right? And we didn't renovate all the units, but just buying it right, being in the right market, proving the upside because we're now renting them at a higher rate, right? Now we can justify. And I told the guy, I said, I'm sorry, but that you gotta come to me with an offer that's going to entice me to sell this asset. Because this asset right now, we're at 98% occupied and we're raising rents now. So you got to come with a little bit more.
And that's a good thing, right? When you have a good deal like that, you can afford not to sell, right? I'm sure it's a cash cow, you guys, and you've got even more room to grow. And you're like, well,
sure.
Even though that's, to sell for $2 or $3 million more than what you bought it in a year's time or whatever, it's still incredible. When you know that you can get even more for it, that must be a really nice feeling. And you talked about so many great things there about multifamily. It's just amazing, like the power of what you can do with multifamily, right? Like you talked about multifamily versus single family, all those things. Plus the value thing is my favorite thing is how it's valued, right? You have a property, you're in complete control of that property. If you do all the right things, like you said, buy right is humongous, right? And manage right, you're right. If you can manage it right, increase the rents, lower the expenses, you're increasing the NOI, regardless of what's going on around you, right? If the guy down the street wants to sell his for 50% off, that's fine. It doesn't affect you whatsoever. If you're doing everything right, you can increase the value exponentially. It really is amazing. I love that about it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe tell us about your first ever syndication, the first apartment deal that you did. Did you go straight into syndication or did you buy one yourself?
Well, I bought the fourplex on my own. It was a foreclosure. The fourplex was, I think, like $118,000. So I got a bank to lend me a 75%, and I just flipped the house, so I had the money, so I put that money down and I bought it. And then the next deal I did was a 26-unit property up in Leesburg, Florida. That was with my partner. We were going to syndicate it. This deal, again, and this is why it's so important for people getting involved in multifamily. It doesn't matter if you're in real estate or whatever. Tell everyone what you're doing. Okay, tell them all, because you never know where it's going to come from. I was telling everybody what I wanted to do or what I was doing and so forth. And one of the hard money lenders that I'm still in touch with today, he sent me this deal. He goes, look, there's a multifamily in Leesburg, Florida. It's an hour north of Orlando. I've never heard of Leesburg. It's 26 units. The husband died. He ran it. The wife, elderly woman, held it for a couple of years. She doesn't know what she's doing. Her attorney and the property manager are ripping her off left and right, blah, blah, blah. And it's a 19 cap. I was like, all right, I don't know, 26, Leesburg, never heard of Leesburg. I'll think about it. I hung up the phone. I was talking to my business partner about it, and she's like, dude, 19 cap? Like, yeah, 19 19 cap. That's cheap, right? That's cheap. She goes, call him back. A few days later, I called him back. I'm like, hey man, is that property still available? He goes, yeah. I'm like, send me the numbers. Send me the numbers. They were asking like $500,000. All the tenants were subsidized from the agricultural department. Who knew that the agricultural department gave housing subsidies? So and the income was huge compared. So I negotiated the price down to 400.
A 19 cap wasn't good enough, right?
Wasn't good enough. We went in and we put the property under contract. We did our due diligence. We did all that inspections and all that kind of stuff. And the day our money went hard, we found out that the subsidy on the property would disappear the minute we took over, because the owner didn't maintain the asset, the actual property, because the subsidy was given to the property, not the tenants. And the landlord had to maintain the property in a certain way and fix it, and no deferred maintenance, and they just let it go, let it go to crap. So we were like, oh my God, our money went hard. We never knew that. So, I called my mentor, I called my coach, what do we do, blah, blah, blah. So they helped us, guide us through this whole process. We told the lawyers, we got our lawyer involved, and, we said to them, listen, you have to give us an extension for as long as it takes for us to figure out this subsidy, because you didn't tell us this information. This is material facts, right, that you left out. The day of takeover, our property's worth zero. It's not worth a 19 cap or a 20 cap or whatever. It's worth zero because we got no income coming in. And we've gotten to know the tenants already. They can't move. They're elderly people. They're war veterans. They got people with tubes sticking out of their chests and wheelchairs. They can't afford to move. Where are they going to go? We don't want to kick people out, right? One of our main goals was to make sure that these people stayed in their homes. So we picked up the phone and we called and we this and we, and every day with my business partner, oh my God, what do we do? We can't believe it. 1 foot forward, keep going, you keep going, right? I have, I don't know if I can say it here, excuse me, I have my oh shit rule.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah, of course, yeah.
When things go sideways, you're allowed to say oh shit 3 times. You're allowed to freak out for as long as it takes you to say oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Okay, I freaked out. All right, now what do we do? Mm-hmm. All right, let's start moving again, right? So we started moving, and then finally we were able to get Section 8 to give the vouchers to the individual tenants. And they said, the tenants can move to whatever property they want and give the voucher to any property. We said they're not moving anywhere. We're 100% sure. Now at that point, we were like, all right, you know what? Do we want to keep the property or not? We said, no, we don't want this. Let's flip it. So I knew a guy who had a mastermind group, real estate mastermind of syndicators in Orlando. I called him. He mentioned it to his group. One of the investors came with her financial partner. They looked at the property, blah, 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 blah. They liked it, this and that. We assigned the contract over to them at $480,000, and we netted 60 after expenses and whatnot that we had. That was like the first kind of real multifamily deal that we ever did. And thank God that we were able to close on it and assign it, and we didn't lose our money, because if we would have had a bad taste, if we would have lost our earnest money deposit, if we would have lost and done that, I probably would not be here right now talking to you on this podcast. I would probably be doing something else, because that would have probably derailed us and got, screw multifamily. It's just, we don't want to do it. Yeah. So it's important to have a good, sounding board, a good, someone that you can bounce ideas off of and support group, right? And whatnot. That's what helped us get across the finish line.
Yeah, wow, what a fascinating story. The agriculture department gives out subsidies. I guess the idea is that whoever owns the properties, they take care of the agriculture around the area, I guess, and that's why they subsidize it. I don't know. I've never ever heard anything like that before. That's a cool stuff. I know,
right?
And I've never heard of a 19 cap either. That's incredible. A 19, and you were like, I don't know if a 19 cap's a good deal.
I'm not quite sure about that.
I don't do anything under a 20 cap.
Exactly.
Well, cool story. What was the first syndication that you guys did? What was
So then we found a sponsor that we knew that had a good, strong track record. And we said, hey, we'd like to be part of your team. Let us help you, right? So we went, we became investors. We invested $50,000 of our own money because we just flipped the 26 units. So we had that money. So we took that money, we invested in his deal. So now we knew what it was like to be an investor, a limited partner in a project, right? An opportunity. Then we said, let us help you. We want to be part of the inner team, the general partners. What can we do? So he gave us some, market research, this and that, and put together a property package and to help them with things of that nature. And along while we held the property, we were what do you call it? Investor relations, sending out emails, doing market research, market updates, things of that nature. While we were raising capital, we were talking to a couple of our friends, and they said, "Hey, we'd like to put money into that deal as well." So we came and we put in. We raised $150,000 from outside investors as well, and they came in. So now we also had the experience of raising capital, and now we were able to put on our track record that we were part of the team that syndicated this deal. It was 140, 150 unit property outside of Dallas, Texas. It was a Class A property. The guy was running it. The guy who owned it built it and was running it like a C-class property. So we bought it, and then we were able to put that on our track record and say, hey, this is what we've done. This is the team that we worked with. And that's how we got our foot into the door on a bigger syndication. And the next one that we did after that, we were the guys leading the charge, right? We met another guy, and he was living in Hawaii. He built a relationship with a broker in Houston for 2 years, right? That's why it's so important to build relationships. 2 years later, the broker sent them a deal, and that guy came to us and said, hey, Nitzan, Laura, would you guys mind helping me on this? I'm out in Hawaii, and I don't have a track record. I heard you guys just closed it. We said, yeah, sure, absolutely. 224 units. Okay. We went, we did the process, we raised money, we did whatever we had to do. We raised enough money to close the deal, right? All the acquisition fees and everything later, all that money had to come later because we didn't, it was our first deal that we'd actually raised a lot of money on, right? So we were doing that, we were running, boom, closing time, we raised enough money to be able to close. After that, we continued raising the funds. We held that property for 27 months. We bought it, I think, around $6.5 million. We put about $500,000 into it, raised rents, boom, boom, boom. 27 months later, we get an offer for $10.5 million. That's what I'm talking about. Right? And then we just kept going from there, and just boom, 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 and just just kind of starts rolling, right? It's like anything. The first one is always the hardest. But if you try to do it by yourself, it's almost impossible. You got to create a team around you, and that team, you got to make sure that you're the weakest link in that team, right? You want that team to be strong. You want to know what are your specialties, what are you good at, what you want to do, and then fill in everything else with other people.
Yeah.
So that's how we kind of got our start.
And like you said, when you're starting out, that's the hardest point, right? So you mentioned that you guys raised $150,000 for that first deal. How do you guys do that? Because at that time, I know you have a part of a team, but you've done flipping and you've had success, some entrepreneurial success, but still, when you're trying to get someone to part from their hard-earned money, it's not that easy, right? So how were you guys able to raise that money on that first one?
So, it's all about relationships, right? I have a sign over here on my wall that says, successful people do the hardest thing. They build relationships. And that's the key. That's the key to it all. I had a guy on LinkedIn contact me. He's like, hey, Nitzan, hi. I see you on LinkedIn, and, I'm involved in my first syndication. Where do I find investors? I don't know. Look around. I don't know. Do investors have like investor written on their forehead? Do they have like, one of those bar codes on the back of their neck that you go with your iPhone, with your phone, and scan it? I'm an investor? No. It's the people that you build relationships with, right? So if you're building your network of people, you got to create your avatar of the perfect investor, of your ideal person. Now you can have 3 or 4 different avatars, right? You know, I want someone between the ages of 35 and 45 that is married, that has 2 kids, that is an engineer, a doctor, that has a full-time, high-paying job, that doesn't have room. Blah, blah. Okay, great. I built that avatar. Now, where do these people hang out? Who do I know in my group of network that fits that avatar, right? If I don't have anybody, then I got to ask, where do they hang out? I go hang out over there. I build relationships with them. And then I just present an opportunity. I never ask for money. I never go to somebody, hey, would you like to invest in my deal? No. I don't want to invest in anything. I don't know who you are. I don't know what this deal is. I don't invest in anything. But if I build a relationship with you and we have a good, you know, back and forth, and we're talking and we have commonality and we built the thing, you know, one day I can go, hey, Barry, listen, you know, I really respect, you know, what you're doing and your business, and you're so smart. And, you know, I'm working on this project. Would you mind taking a look at it and giving me your feedback on it? Because I really respect your knowledge and your vision and the way you look at things. What are you going to say? No? Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah. Right? Everybody wants to give their opinion, right? And everyone's got an opinion. Again, I don't really care what your opinion is, because I vetted the deal. I know the market. I know what's going on. But this is a way in for me to present you with an opportunity, right? Or you can just build a relationship. I go to this CrossFit gym, and there's a guy in my class. He's my age. He's got his own company, landscaping company. We started building a relationship. You know, we bond because we sweat on the floor together, and we're lifting, blah, 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 right? Battle and all this stuff. And we started talking and hanging out. And he goes, so what do you do? I said, I'm in real estate. You know, what do you do? How long have you been doing the landscaping? Do you like the landscaping? Was that something that you always wanted to do? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, you love motorcycles. I used to have a motorcycle. You ride, I ride. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Show me your wounds, show me your scars, right? That kind of stuff. You want people to see who you really are, because when they invest, they're investing in you. They're not investing in the deal. The deal is what's going to give them the return, but they're investing in you. Okay, they're investing in the relationship that you've built with them. So I went to this guy, and you know, we'll call him Jim, right? So Jim and I used to work out together, and I told him, I said, yeah, you know, I got properties in Georgia and Carolinas and Texas. And he goes, oh, you know, my dad used to own properties and a couple of offices and some houses. And, you know, we sold them when he died. And I really want to get into it. And my wife is from Georgia originally. I said, oh, cool, blah, 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 blah. Never told him really what I did, right? Kept working out. Boom. One day I put a property under contract outside of Atlanta. I come back. And we started talking. I said, oh, yeah, man. I said, he goes, hey, how's it going? I said, dude, it's awesome, man. We just put a property under contract out of Atlanta, 50 unit. He goes, oh, interesting. Send it to me. Okay. What's your email? Text me your email. Boom. Texted me email. I sent it to him. That was it. Never asked for money, never pushed it, never did. All I did was build relationship. Now, that type of relationship takes a long time to build. There are ways of building it quicker, right? With social media and online presence and all that kind of stuff, right? You know, when you see somebody on television or on a screen over and over and over again, and they're talking to you and they're giving you different things, you build this relationship in your mind with this person, but this person doesn't know you. You're on a screen, right? This person's on a screen. They don't know who's watching them. But in my mind, I've got this, me and Barry, we're buds, man. I see Barry jump in and, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's another way of building relationships. So finding the money is all around you. You just got to build relationships. You got to go and understand who you're looking for, right? Who's the avatar that you want? Who's the exact person? And then find it. You will save a lot of time and a lot of energy if you know exactly who you're focusing on, who your person is. And then with social media, all you do at that point is you take that one avatar, that one person, right? And you do all your media content to that one person. That's it. You don't have to guess anymore. okay, if I'm a 35 to 45-year-old male, right, we'll just take that, and I've got 2 kids, I've got a job, I've got a good paying job, right? I have a good life, so I can't leave my job, but I want my money, but I understand that eventually I might lose that job or I might stop working and I need to have income coming in. So how do I get my money to work for me? These are the questions that a 35 to 45-year-old guy with 2 kids and a job has, right? So if you create your content based on those questions and you're directing it to that person, you're going to start getting feedback from these types of people. You're going to get to them and they'll comment, and then you comment and you build a relationship. You say, hey, you know what, if you want to get involved and you want to get more information, do me a favor, fill out my investor application form over here, because we don't accept every person into our deal. You have to pass a screening to get into our deals. We don't just take anybody, right? That kind of, well, wait a minute, what's wrong with me? I want to be part of your deal, right? That whole
creating exclusivity, right? You make it think,
Mm-hmm.
It's that's fascinating. That's phenomenal advice on how to just those, I don't know, whatever it was, 2, 3, 5 minutes. If people want to go back, if you want to raise money and you just go back and listen to that again, that was phenomenal. I'm taking notes over here as you're talking, because it's so great. It's so true, right? It's, for one, it's relationships. You hit the nail on the head, right? Nobody's going to give you money. Just if you have a screening deal and they don't know who you are, and maybe they don't trust you, or they don't understand who you are, they're not going to give you that money, and unless they're a gambler, right? But for the most part, people who have a good amount of money, they have a good amount of money for a reason, because they're smart with it and they want to look after it. But also, it's just having that relationship and not forcing your deal. Hey, have a deal. You invest in my deal. Invest in my deal. You know, I was always told that you're giving them the opportunity to be part of your deal. Once you see it like that, rather than asking for a deal, you're doing them a favor by giving them the opportunity to be a part of your deal. Because what are they going to do with their money otherwise? Stick it in the stock market? It's yo-yoing down. Who knows what's going to happen next? They put it in some bonds. They put it in some treasuries. They stick it in the bank. They lose whatever it is to inflation every year. You know, so you're giving them a great opportunity to create cash flow, increase that money with a hard asset, and have some tax benefits along the way, and they don't have to do anything. It's unbelievable, you know? So it's like, you know.
Where do I sign up?
Yeah, exactly. That's really cool. So I really appreciate you explaining that. You mentioned earlier that you guys just closed on a 48 unit. Talk to us a little bit about that one. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. We have a common friend who you working on that one with. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that 48 unit.
Yeah, sure. So it's in a tertiary market, but it's in a strong tertiary market. And the reason why we liked it is because in that market, very close to the property that we bought, they're building a Class A multifamily, and they're building a hotel. So that tells me that there are people out there that are investing and spending money. You know, a hotel is not going to build in an area that is declining, that doesn't have any people coming in, that has no reason to be there. Also, someone who's going to develop a Class A multifamily complex, they're definitely doing their homework, right? So we found it, and yes, so it came to me, and again, building relationships with people, right? It's all about relationships. So I have this relationship with the same person that we have in common, and he came to me and said, hey, would you like to help us? We're newbies in this business. Can you help us? I said, sure, what do you need? Well, we need someone with a track record, with some liquidity, who can sponsor, who can sign on the note, who can, you know, kind of be the skipper, right? And guide the ship during the investment period. I said, yeah, I would love to. I flew out there. We walked the property a couple of times. I saw it, saw the market, drove the comparables. We worked on the numbers together. We did it. Then I built relation. Then I have a friend of mine for 40 years. We know each other. He was living in South America, just moved to Florida. I found him a house. He lives across the street from me. And we've been involved in some of my other projects. And I told him, I said, listen, why don't we, you know a lot of people with money in Chile, right? You've been there for 25, 30 years. And the Jewish community in Santiago, Chile is very, very small and very, very tight. Very small, like 10,000 people in all Santiago that are Jews. And they all go to the same, JCC, and they go to the same temple, and they know everybody, and it's a very small community type. I said, you know everybody. why don't we start pooling and get the Chileans, and we'll raise money from Chile for our deals, and we'll do it, and blah, 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 blah. He said yes. So this was the first deal that we did together with our Chilean partners in South America. They raised all of the capital. So this is when I tell people you can do this without any of your own money, this deal is the epitome. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. The last 5 deals I've done are the epitome of no money out of my pocket, with none of my own money. Yes, I'm the one that signed on the loan, but if you don't have the track record, the net worth, the liquidity, and you're not the sponsor, you can still build the team. It's about building the team. Find yourself a sponsor. Find yourself money people. Find yourself someone who knows how to underwrite. Find yourself someone who knows how to manage property, and create the team. You create the team, and now you don't have to put any of your own money down. For this deal, our friend didn't even put his money down for the earnest money deposit. He borrowed it from an investor. So they didn't put any of their own money in as well, right? My Chilean friends, they didn't put their money in as well. They went and they raised the money. So the partnership, the team, we did this without any of our own money. We closed on it. We closed on it a couple of days ago. Property manager is in there. We were talking. We have 2 units that are vacant. One is rent ready. The other one is not. The one that's not rent ready, we're going to redo the floors, cabinets, paint them, really give it a nice, not spend a lot of money, $2,000, $3,000 on the unit, interior maybe even less, $1,500, and take that and bump it up $100, $50 more than what we underwrote, than our pro forma numbers, right? And that's another thing, when you're talking to investors, you always want to under promise and over deliver, right? I'll give you a little short story before we go. I have a friend of mine. He's a teacher. He's my daughter's teacher, right? Teacher salary. He took out a line of credit, and we're investing. We're flipping houses. We're flipping houses in Texas, in Galveston, Texas, right? Never seen the houses. Never touched the houses. I have no idea about the houses. I got my partner out there. We send him the money. He does it. We close on it. He sends us the money back. Beautiful relationship. Beautiful. So I told my friend, the teacher, I said, listen, we're going to make maybe 30 to 35% return on investment within 3-4 months. He's like, wow, that's awesome. I go, yes, it's awesome. Okay, cool. We went, we did the deal, 2 months, right? We did the deal, and we made 29% return on our money. Now, it wasn't 30%, it wasn't 35, it was 29, but in 2 months.
Yeah.
So if you take 29% and you multiply that by 6, right? 12 months.
Yeah.
You made 174% annual rate of return.
Yeah.
You know what he said to me? He goes, yeah, but didn't you say 30? I was like, you're kidding me, right? I said, I gave you 29% return on your money in 2 months. He goes, no. He goes, that's amazing. But didn't you say 30? So from that point on, and I always knew under promise and over deliver, but I if we would have held it for 3-4 months, we probably would have gotten 31, 32, 33%. But again, that would have been for 3-4 months.
Yeah.
I wanted shorter. I said, let's get 29% in 2 months. We get our money back. We can do it again. Right? Keep it moving. You don't want your money sitting in one place for too long. But he kept saying, didn't you say 30? Didn't you say 30? See, if I would have told him I'm going to give you 25% return on your money in 12 months, I would go, wow, that's fantastic. That's awesome. And then giving it to him in 2 months, right? Then I look like I'm a king, right? But I told him 30 and I gave him 29 in 2 months. So always under promise and over deliver with your investors. And that's what we do when we do our numbers, right? If we know that we can push it to 750, I'll tell them, listen, man, you know what? If we can do it at 725 and still make a good return, I'm going to tell them 725. And I'm going to blow their minds when I take it to 775 or 800, right? Then they're going to say, well, let's do it again.
That's a great story about your friend that wasn't happy with those phenomenal, like those are incredible returns, right? But because you mentioned something else, they wanted the higher returns. That's both. Do you still work with that guy? Or you're like, ah, forget
Oh,
it.
yeah, absolutely. He's a good friend of mine. He's my daughter's teacher, so I see him all the time.
You have to keep him happy, right? He's a teacher. That's great. That's great. Well, it's been phenomenal. We had so many good stories and great stories, and there's so much more that we could have touched on. It was unbelievable. But we get to the part of the show where I like to make the guest into a wrestler, turn the guest into a wrestler. You look like you're ready. So I'm going to ask you. We ask wrestling themed real estate questions. So the first one is, what would your wrestling name be? If you had to pick a wrestling name, what would it be?
My wrestling name would be the Property Buster.
Okay, the Property Buster. I like it. I like it. I like it. Every wrestler has a special move. What would your special move in real estate be? What is your strength in real estate?
My strength is talking to people. My strength is building relationships with people and delegating, right? I'm really strong at delegating, right? I like to say that I'm really lazy. I don't like to work. So I have to figure out how to make money without working a lot. So I delegate. I'm good at building teams, right? I'm good at presenting opportunities and talking to people and sharing exactly what's going on, leading the team, delegating. So that's kind of my forte.
And I don't buy that for a second. I don't buy that there's any lazy bone in your bone whatsoever, not even the smallest one. I don't buy that for 1 second. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate investing career?
I would have to say, it goes back to knowing who you're working with, right? We were working on this big project, and it was a 300 unit property up in northern Florida, and someone brought me the deal, and I agreed to work with them and to help them raise capital. And from the beginning, they said, oh, you know what? We have this broker dealer who is going to bring us all the equity. All we need is a sponsor and help closing the deal and guidance and so forth. I said, yeah, great, let's do it. So as we're going through it, their broker dealer, backed out, right? And that's why I always tell people, never have one person telling you, I'll bring you the money. Because if that one person says, sorry, right? My daughter's getting married, my son's graduating from college, whatever it is, and they're out, you don't have any equity, right? So they came back to me and they said, hey, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? I said, all right, let's figure this out. Let's talk to the sellers. Let's get an extension and see what we can do. So we got an extension. We had to put money down, and they didn't have any money. So they said, hey, would you mind putting some earnest money down? I said, okay, we'll put earnest money down. So we did that, and we got an extension. And then I went and I talked to this guy who owns a family office. Okay, I don't want to mention his name here, but he came and I met with him. He's from Florida. I met with him different times, sent him the package, sent him everything. He's like, dude, I got it. We're going to do it. I'll raise the capital. We'll take care of it, blah, blah, blah. I've got $30 million. I'm this, I'm that. So I said, listen, if you've got the money, it's a $5 million raise. Why don't we just close the deal? And once we own the deal, we'll continue to raise capital. And it's a lot easier to raise capital when you own the deal, right? You own it. You're not stressed about the closing timeline. You're not this. This guy dragged my ass for a year. Another extension, another extension, another extension. And there's money coming out of our pockets, right? These guys don't have the money. Now, my money went hard, right? So I'm like, well, I'm not going to lose this money. What do we got? Oh, put more money and more money and more money, right? Finally, he was like, he didn't pan out. Nothing. While we were doing this, right, I kept negotiating with the sellers, right? This is almost like 9 months already that we're in contract. And they're like, guys, you've been telling us already, blah, 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 blah. I finally got with so my business partner and I, our motto is, if we put a property under contract, we will make sure that the seller will close on it. Either if it's with us or if we flip it to somebody else that will close, they will close with us. That's kind of the mindset that we have. But this guy slammed us. I had $200,000 of my own money in this deal. Hard, non-refundable. We finally found a buyer that was willing to take over the property, take over the contract, and when they closed, the seller said that they were going to refund our earnest money deposit minus $50,000. Now, the guys that brought me the deal, I told them, I said, listen, I said, you borrowed the money, the first money from this other guy. Then you borrowed money from me, okay? So, and then you put a little bit of your own money. I said, first, when you get the money, I said, the only way I'll add more money to the extension so that the new buyer can close on it is if you agree, and I have it in an email, if you agree that when you get the earnest money deposit back, you make the other investor whole, you give me whatever I put in, and then whatever losses there are is on you because you're the one that came to me, you're the one that had the broker dealer, it was, you know, you came to me. Why should I lose my money? Said, yeah, no problem. We did the deal. The new buyer closed on the property. The sellers gave my other quote unquote partner money back. He paid his investor. He kept most of it and gave me a little bit back of my money. That kind of really threw me, and I lost money. I learned a lot from that deal, right? I learned about trusting people, about having everything in writing, about, you know, if it's not my deal and it's not this, you know what, I'm just not going to do it. Not going to do it. So that also took me, it was a body slam because I thought I was able to raise that money myself. And then I found out that I wasn't able. My skill set at that time, my network, the people that I knew, the ego that I had, got deflated. And it took me about a year to recover from that. That was a hard hit, right? I said to myself, well, wow, you know, if I thought I could do this and I can't do that, then what do I do? How do I get big? What's wrong with my network? You know, all these questions start coming up. The money I lost, you know, I'm like, what am I going to do? Am I going to spend money on an attorney and sue the guy? No. Lesson learned, right? I lost money, lost him as an investor and whatever. But the mind, the mind F word, right? Really hit hard. That was the biggest, that was the slam, right? That was that right on the solar plex that just knocked the wind out of me because I had to go back to the drawing board and kind of figure out, wow, you know, I thought I was here, but I was really here. What happened, right? I had to revamp. I had to sit back. I had to lick my wounds for a long time. And I came out of it saying, okay, what did I learn from it? Right? Where am I? What do I need to do differently? What's going on here, right? And you know, my partner and I, we pivoted, we regrouped, we looked, we healed, and then, you know, we're back out there kicking it, doing what we do, learning from our experiences, right? Moving up. And like I said, the last 5 deals we did, no money out of our own pocket. We closed on them. We spoke about one of the deals. We bought it for $9.5 million. Now I got an offer for $10 million, for $12 million. So, you know, you learn, right? That was a big body slam. That was a big body slam.
Was there a moment you were standing on the top rope, getting ready to jump? What was it, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
It was probably the biggest deal that we ever did. It was a $27 million property. Someone came to us to help them with it, right? And we took it over, and we were there, and we were, you know. Well, actually, you know what? That wasn't. Let me think real quick. You know, sitting on that and kind of jumping off. Well, you know, in real estate, I would have to say probably What was the biggest fear? I would say the first real syndication that I did with my partner on our own, okay, was that 224 unit property, right? We're looking at it. We're like, do we do it? We've never raised this much money before. Can we do it? Do we have what it takes? Do we know what we need to do to manage the property? What are we going to do? And, my partner and I, we said, you know what? Only one way to find out. Put that puppy under contract, put that money down, and I guess the next tightrope that we had, right, from that high was when we were doing our due diligence, and it was like $150,000 earnest money deposit, and we had to tell the broker, okay, we're going hard, we're going non-refundable, right? Let's do it, because that was money that if we lost it, that's not, we're not these big companies or these big ultra wealthy people, right? This is going to hurt us. But do we do it? What do we do? I remember my partner and I for a couple of nights, just talking on the phone. What do we do? Should we? What about this? And what about that? And what about this? And we just kept going scenario over scenario over scenario over scenario. And then we finally said, all right, let's pull the trigger. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. We went, we pulled the trigger, we jumped, and we were very happy that we jumped. Very happy. As entrepreneurs, a lot of times you got to jump off the cliff and build the airplane while you're falling.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of what we did over there.
Yeah. It's about taking action. Once you take action, you can kind of figure everything out as you go, right? Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing everything today. It's been a fantastic story about all your successes and some unfortunate, mishaps and some body slams along the way. But I think there's a ton of lessons for everyone to take away from today's. I'm definitely going to go back and watch this again. I really, really enjoyed it. On top of that all, you have a fantastic personality, so it was really fun to listen to you talk. Before we go, where can people find out more about you and what you do, about maybe your social media and stuff as well? So where and how can people find you?
Yeah, sure. So, on social media, I'm known as the Traveling Investor. So I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook as a Traveling Investor, and myself, Nitzan Mosery. So, feel free to hit me up there. LinkedIn as Nitzan Mosery, the Traveling Investor. I'm also on Twitter. What else is there? There's Instagram. I'm on TikTok as well. So you can go check me out on all those different platforms as a Traveling Investor. You can check out my website. It's traveling-investor.com. You can see who I am and what I am, and I have my different courses and different ways of contacting me and so forth. My email is Nitzan, Nizan, @investwithcip.com, or success@traveling-investor.com. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Look me up on social media. I also have a live radio show that happens. I'm actually going in an hour and a half live. It's called the Traveling Investor Radio Show. It's on W4CY.com every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Cool. I'll put the links to all those description in the put all the links in the description below so everyone can find you there. So cool. Thank you so much, Nitzan. It's been an absolutely fascinating interview. I loved every second of it. It's flown by. So thank you so much for giving up your time. I know obviously you're a super busy guy. You're non-stop, I think. But yeah, thank you so much for today.
Sure, my pleasure. It was great. Thank you. I appreciate being here.